Hello, happy Monday. Happy end of February, and we're marching into spring. My name is Wayne. Welcome to my world. I thought today we'd take a look at things that people have shared with me, things I have created in such a way that will increase your success strategy to build some clever ideas related to building wealth by being a better negotiator. Um, Most of these ideas were spin-offs of things I heard from people in training or people I've listened to at conferences myself. Bottom line is negotiations have a lot of possible outcomes. And if you don't have a strategy, things can become tough, as we all know. But if you do have a strategy and do have time on your side, certain things can happen to your advantage. And so the first one I think I talked about in learning from people was the concept of pushing, pulling, and persisting. See, obviously, who has the power to pull away? The walk away power, the best alternative to the negotiated agreement. So find some way to push information out to people. Be persistent, because patience without persistence in building wealth leads to paralysis. A lot of people thought they could invest in something, would have bought that property, should have bought that property, and now they watch other people build wealth with that property or any other investment. So the persistence, the pushing, and the pulling make the best deal for everybody. The key to that is the ability to walk away. That's the first thing out of the 24 I want to share. I think the other one that popped up in many places, especially with all our multiple offers over the past year or so, is always include an escalation clause to make your offer more competitive. A great way to give your client the best chance to win a multiple offer situation. We know that, but there's specific language that should be in that clause to make it work and cover everything and the options with your particular buyer client, see what goes on. But make sure if they're going to do that, that you get an okay from the other side to make sure that you get a copy of the highest written offer along with their acceptance. You want something to prove that they are not making this up. We know a lot can be said about honesty and the problems. Something else that seems to be a strategy that is more effective for people, not only in building wealth in real estate, but building wealth in life, is something I just did. Always negotiate by phone or text messages before committing anything on paper. I've been in the process of trying to buy a new refrigerator to match one on a property I just bought, so it'd be the same kind of appliances. I went to a major retailer's website, among others, saw the price, and right below the price, it said save $583. So I clicked the button. I talked to the people on the phone. They said they would honor the price if I could show them the actual invoice of what I'm buying it for. I clicked the button to prove I could get $583 off, and lo and behold, this is hard for me to believe. My website where I was going to buy the product for $583 less sent me to a competitor's website. It sent me to a Walmart website. And this company is not affiliated with Walmart. They're a large retailer. I don't understand how that happened, but when I called back, they said I'd have to prove that I can buy it for that price. Frustrated, I went to another store and negotiated. And lo and behold, by phone, I was able to get an okay to have that product shipped directly from GE, who manufactures the cafe product, to the property I'm sending it to, out of state, pay for it over the phone, and get an extra $100 off by using that process. So the bottom line was I was willing to pay X thousands of dollars. I got $583 off, then I got $200 off, then I got another $100 off, all because I spent some time negotiating by phone before committing to paper. And a lady who's CEO of a company shared that concept with me, that negotiation deals brings up points on the phone that can be best handled before you put them on paper. I know some agents always want to see on paper, but let's get the ball rolling. So I'm not at all against using the phone or a text message to bring things together. It's helpful to have something in writing to talk with them about, but basically in multiple offers, in other situations, many times, keep it simple. stupid or keep it short and simple, KISS, whatever method you prefer. But the point is, don't be up against doing something by phone or by text message. The third point I found out of value was to basically, I guess you'd say, look at things related to negotiating directly with the deal maker, i.e., the agent or the person who's going to make the decision. In real estate, it's usually the agent who's sharing it with their client. But those are good strategies. Number 4, manage buyer expectations and practice discretion. Boy, that's a word we need to use more than we did. Agent from Douglas Elliman shared that concept with me in Miami a while back. When negotiating on behalf of buyers, the best tip is to run through the scenarios with them to help manage expectations. In fact, I honestly believe every buyer counseling session, every seller counseling session should have an expectation session. That should be built in as we prepare to get them to sign a buyer agency agreement or to sign a listing agreement. If you're not using an expectation session as part of the process of going from coming in and saying hello to getting that listing or signing a buyer agreement, I believe you're missing out on something very important. It makes it very appealing because they see ahead of time what to expect. No surprises. Real estate has so many turns and twists and roads we never go on. We forget about the fact that some of these people are totally surprised and shocked. But discretion has to be a part of that whole process, because I'm found of the opinion that to not show my buyers cards and get a non-biased view on a deal is the best situation if I'm a buyer's agent. In the same respect, I don't want to show my seller's cards. One of the most competitive techniques that is used in a win-lose, win-win situation is bluffing. And boy, you sometimes need to give your clients an expectation sessions not to show any emotion or any words or any phrases that would hurt them in the future negotiations. I walk into stores to buy things retail. I'm talking online to someone to get a price. I learned a long time ago, it's smart to act dumb, but it's dumb to act smart. Sometimes people see like they know everything and they don't. I like to learn and listen and then make my decisions. Another Douglas Elliman broker in New York shared a thought about the concept of sometimes the old phrase, I got to sleep on it, is not such a bad idea. What are you going to sleep on? Well, let's not rush into things unless it's a tough market and you better get going fast. Brokers should not make a strategy of negotiations personal. Both sides should be win-win. Hopefully your side is a bigger win. It becomes personal when it's a win-lose. And win-lose is not a good deal in anything you do, whether it's real estate, large purchases at home, auto purchases, appliance purchases, anything that is going to be a win-lose is usually not good. Communicating and reminding people, getting information, gathering information is all going to help make that happen in a better way. Number 6, assess the type of negotiations and identity value. There was a seminar a while back that was, I guess you'd say, hosted by some large real estate companies. And one of the presidents of a large real estate entity basically shared a strategy for wealth building that was influenced by a book called Deal Making, the New Strategy of Negotiations, by a tremendous author. Again, it's called Deal Making, the New Strategy of Negotiations. But it gears itself towards auctions. So it's a strategy of negotiations. The type of negotiation you're trying to accomplish, whether you're negotiating the best deal for your client or for yourself, or ideally should be a win-win situation. The core challenge in negotiating is identifying value-creating moves. We know that features are one thing, benefits are the real value somebody gets out of something. The same feature can have totally different benefits and make something worth much more money to somebody else. It's very true that you're looking for creating value. People buy on emotion, justify on logic. once they see the value emotionally, once you can build that feeling, and I'll give you a clue, to create value creating moves, don't ask people what they think about something. Ask them how they feel about it. The feeling brain is much more powerful than a thinking brain. See, if you think a house is overpriced, let's say by $100,000, $600,000 house, overpriced by $100,000. And the seller will say, well, you're not even close. They don't even want to counter. They're irritated. They're not denying. They just don't want to negotiate. Sometimes they know you are right, but they don't want to give in. So obviously, if you have a process of proving the value and the facts, you might find some kind of a structure that allows you to break through that impasse. You're so far apart. We call that in negotiation training at our institute, the ZOPA, the zone of possible agreement. And the type of house purchase is a very, very unique deal. We've got to show some value on both sides. The drawbacks of waiting to sell for a better offer, the drawbacks of waiting to buy because the interest rates are going to change. The structure of the deal requires that you may want to pay a substantially higher price if you're the buyer. And if you're a seller, realize the facts that past sellers have paid for properties impacts what this buyer will pay for property. Wow. Number 7, always keep notes in your CRM of everything you do. Years ago, when everybody's using just a business card, I would collect business cards constantly. Before I went home, sitting in my car after I met all those people, I turned over on the back and put down the date and what did we discuss and what did I notice about them. Were they wearing a certain color? This. Do they have a certain brand of clothing on? Was somebody wearing a designer purse? Was somebody having a certain kind of hairstyle? Somebody talked about their kids. I made little notes on the back of those business cards. Now our CRM does all that for us. And a gentleman that does a lot of business development shared even more depth on that process. See, every listing agent, you, me, we have different negotiating styles. Every selling agent, you and me, have different negotiating styles. I want to keep notes as much as I can about things I learned about the people themselves, as well as their style. And the best person I learned that from is a man named Harvey McKay, who owns an envelope company in Minnesota. He wrote several books, some of you may have read. Don't Swim with the Sharks, Let Them Take the Shirt Off Your Back. Talked about 66 questions he mandated his salespeople would try to find out about potential clients and current clients. What kind of things would be their hot buttons? And any kind of useful data, now today it's easier to put into a CRM than in a back of a business card. So don't just think the CRM is for data on how to reach somebody. It's also data on how to motivate somebody. Any useful data. There's loads of options out there. I've seen people use Lion Desk if they don't have one from their company. Lion Desk is not a bad source. Number 7. Sean Moudry, a real estate coach, talked about setting reasonable expectations. And I'm not too excited about that word reasonable. It always creates a lot of movement, stretching, shrinking. So reasonable is an interesting word. But more important, let's take the word of expectations. What's fair? A reasonable expectation of what we can do in this process of buying something for ourselves personally or selling or buying a home as an investment or as a personal residence always is based on the fact that you, for some reason, need to make buyers and sellers aware in your expectation session, things like what they'll walk away with if they're the seller, what they got to bring to the table if they're a buyer, explain some of the unexpected expenses, depending on how taxes are handled, reasonable expectations, because sometimes sellers don't realize that there's a lot of expenses they weren't anticipating, especially if taxes are in arrears. Buyers sometimes didn't realize all the expenses there are. Obviously, FHA insurance, the mortgage insurance premium can be a huge difference. The interest rates today of what you could buy last year or 6 months ago or 3 months ago versus today could be a reason that there's got to be different kinds of expectations. And basically, there should be no surprises. That's really what reasonable expectations are about. No surprises. Number 8. Wow. Probably a person that I've always respected in terms of his dedication, discipline, and dire determination is Josh Altman. Josh Altman identified a concept that he called watch out for the anger hammer. In life, nothing can keep you from getting what you want faster than becoming emotional. You get angry, you get frustrated, you make poor decisions. The stakes are high in everything we do, whether it's real estate, personal purchases, or in life. And he's got a book called The Altman Close, which covers a lot of neat ideas, and I recommend you read it. He compares getting angry during negotiations to a hammer falling out of the sky and hitting you on your head. Few stronger negotiators never try to get angry. They know how to keep a poker face. In fact, there's another book called The Intimate Enemy by a man named Bach. Teaches you how to fight fair and not to argue. Because anger leads to arguments. Arguments lead to anger. Anger creates emotional stress, and that sometimes kills a deal. Learn how to keep your poker face, and when they talk louder, you talk softer. When they talk softer, you talk even softer. Emotion is a weakness at the negotiating table. That's why information is critical. If I know more about the situation than you do, I'm in control. If you know more about the situation, you're in control. And that's how you spell success. Control. Don't get angry. Don't pace. Don't pout. Don't storm out. That doesn't happen. Stuff happens. So that's why they got those shirts. Realize the power of knowing that going in, be prepared to let it roll off your back and smile. It's the job. SMILE. See more in life enthusiastically. The other factor that seems to be very common in becoming a better negotiator to build wealth, not only in your personal items, but in your real estate career, is to make the other side feel saying yes was their idea. That's a powerful concept. No one likes to be coerced into doing anything. Smart people who understand the way our minds work, the way our brain works, often subtly encourage the other party to think they're in control. I actually have a program I may do again and repeat on one of my future Facebook Lives. It's called How to Persuade Before You Persuade. See, we don't persuade enough. And we always don't know the persuasion principles. Affirming language is a very positive concept. A simple phrase like "you probably refuse this, but" leads to increased compliance because they want to agree. People want to be fair. In fact, 2 magic words that sugarcoat a request to get what you want most of the time is to say to them at the end of your request, "Fair enough?" Fair enough are like little sugar coatings that make them want to say yes, because nobody in any walk of life wants to feel on that they're not fair. Would you consider something as you make your decision? Would you consider a different date, different time, different term, different way of paying? That's the critical element. Number 10, negotiate from that win-win perspective. Now, the key to that is to realize you want your win to be a bigger win, but it still should be a win-win. The most effective and best way to negotiate for anything is lose-lose. Both throw in something at the beginning. Then you go through the struggle of win-lose, 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 that eventually hopefully becomes a win-win. A number of coaches, a number of trainers, a number of people in the corporate world have suggested we don't do enough win-win. And that becomes what's more of a competitive situation. The more collaborative you are, the better off you're going to create that perspective that looks like everybody can win in this thing. Learn to focus on solutions instead of turning everything into an adverse problem. Make the pie bigger. There's all kinds of ways that can work. But the bottom line is a win-win strategy starts with a lot of collaborative negotiating strategies, not the competitive negotiating strategies. They're used, but they're not nearly as important. Stop and think the last time you had a win-win situation. You walked away and you felt you were happy and they felt they were happy. My refrigerator, it seems like everybody's happy. I'm happy getting it down to a price that's much less than I thought it would be. I'm happy to know that now it's going to be installed by the manufacturer's people versus a work crew from some appliance store. Not that that's bad, but I'm also happy I was able to get into a relationship now that I realize maybe I should be ordering other things that way from a store who can get them delivered by a manufacturer. I'm learning something. Once again, smart to act dumb. It's dumb to act smart. Number 11. This one works especially in real estate. Always start with a market value instead of an asking price. Of course, it can also work on eBay. If you look at the solds and the completed sales in eBay before you start making bids and send a little note to the seller that you based your price on these last 4 sales, start with market value, not asking price. Again, a lot of people will use that MSRP that's so high, nobody pays that. Mattresses are a good example. Whoever pays full retail for a mattress? It would seem like almost an embarrassment to offer to pay full retail for a mattress. We have many other problems that way. Calculate the value of a property, use the market analysis that you can use, be honest and fair, and realize that you may have to require an offer that present market value in our market is not as good as it should be. But at least those were the last ones that sold. So if you look at the solds and the completed sales on eBay, if you look at the solds in the MLS, you're going to get a pretty good idea of what the market value is. Now in a changing market, we got to impact on that. Multiple offers create those kind of problems. Many people want a lowball in everything they buy. Painters, services, landscaping services, large purchases, small purchases. There's a lot to be said about this, but it creates an adverse position. They often know it won't be accepted, but they figure I might as well try. Just like some people want to price their homes high because they could always come down. We know that's a dangerous thing to do. I've also felt that the seller sometimes is forced to make decisions to accept a little bit less than their minimum, or they'll be forced to become a lost sale. And that's where that zone of possible agreement, that ZOPA, is very important to find out. I'm doing a 2-day negotiation seminar in Northbrook, Illinois on the 29th and 30th of March. You'll probably see some things on Facebook posting it. If you're an Illinois agent, it's worth 8 hours of CE credit. It gives you the certified negotiation expert designation from the premier negotiation training company in North America, the Real Estate Negotiation Institute. Since 2007, I've been training hundreds of agents, thousands of agents in many walks of life, but this one seemed to be the most important training I can do. See, it does not matter how hard your first serve is if you don't get the ball in play. Watch the tennis pros. That first serve sometimes is a fall, then they got to take it easy to make sure they don't lose the second serve and lose a point. If you push too hard, that first serve is wasted. I'm going to share a tip before we leave today, and I'll give you a clue. The T stands for timing. So number 12 in this list of 24 is to focus on timing. Time is on the side of the winners. If I have time on my side of negotiations, I will probably do better than you will. A deadline. Short deadlines are sometimes very valuable. Too long of a deadline sometimes lets a deal just die a slow death. So bottom line is, need to control the time than we control the success. The side in negotiations that controls the time. If I need something today, I'm in trouble. I just spent this morning before I came online getting a painting quote from the first painter to repaint the interior of a house that I'm renting out starting in May 1st. Currently a renter in it. They're leaving. So I wanted to get a price to get this painted. Not only fully painted, but how fast can they do it? I don't want one painter there for a week. I'd like 5 painters there, 4 painters there, done in a half a day, just working hard and getting it done. Same with roofers. I don't want one roofer taking 2 weeks to put a roof on. I'd like to see 10 roofers on there at 8 in the morning and done at 5, clean up and gone. So I'm focused on the concept of timing. And you need to be focused on the concept of timing. Because many times, if we take too long, people get cold feet. The key to managing the cadence, I guess, of time control is communication. Because time control is a cadence, just as we do things in sports in a cadence. So if I want to control my time, I have to control the cadence. Let the other side know what to expect and when. Let them know what to expect and when. And why you have that deadline. Number 12 is something I already talked about, but I cannot say there's anybody better than a professor of psychology who was at Arizona State University, Dr. Robert Cialdini. Bob Cialdini found out some interesting research in his study, Influence at Work. Did you know that if a waiter includes a gift like a mint or a cookie at the end of your meal, his or her tips increase by over 10%? It's the principle of reciprocity. One of the basic 7 points of a success strategy. People feel obligated to give if they have been given something. My stationery says we get by giving. My envelopes on the outside after my address, return address, says we get by giving. That's a powerful tool. We know that you've got to persuade people. And as a result of Bob Cialdini's articles, I've been spending some time talking about persuasion before you persuade. He's got some tremendous tips on persuasion, but let's get you set up. Just like athletes warm up and set up before they show up for the game. They practice, they practice, they practice. Football players in the NFL practice 3-4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week before the game. They practice hours to play a game where it's only minutes of their time actually in an event that causes a score or stops a score. Their practicing is much more powerful than their participation in the game. We also know other things Bob Cialdini talks about. Scarcity, that's a very important persuasion principle. Authority, sometimes a person who is more likely to comply with people if they feel it's coming from a perceived authority. Liking people, likes. I have had more success, probably 95% success of my tenant selection is not because I selected them. It's because my tenants selected them. Likes. Powerful concept. So if you're in a negotiating strategy, do you know somebody who bought from that salesperson? You can say, oh, by the way, I know you and Bob did a great deal on his kitchen appliances or his car or whatever it is. How can you be liked like other people? Do you have any common interest in other people? That's why Harvey Mackay's 66 questions are so critical, because they let you feel that you're like that person. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are their strengths and weaknesses? What do we have in common? Search on the internet. Find out what books they read, what movies they watch. Feel that you are become a part of them by likes. Sometimes people call that modeling. They actually will even wear some of the clothes or same colors or talk about cars. Likes. Bob Cialdini's influence books are tremendous. And obviously, one of the Coldwell Banker regional vice presidents mentioned something years ago to me. Try to have more data than the other side. That's the rational approach. That's the right side of the left side of the brain. Left brain logic, right side feelings. Get that left brain. It's not always location, location, location. I think it's data, data, data when you're negotiating. I need to know why they got their numbers and where they got their numbers from. What data do you have that will outperform the data that they use to gather their information? So you need to gather as much information as you can to make the best decision you can. I don't rush into buying anything, whether it's me going on eBay constantly looking at the price of appliances or jewelry or coffee cups, my Keurig coffee cups. I'm an advocate of Keurig. I have 3 Keurig machines in my home on every floor. I love Keurig coffee. I love K-cups. But I've been paying under 30 cents a K-cup for the same stuff you're paying over 50 cents for. 2 of my passions are Dark Magic and McCafe, and my third one is Dunkin' Donuts. By going online and checking prices, gathering data, I can see when this is a good price. And so why should I pay over 50 cents for a pod when I can pay under 30 cents for a pod? Try to have more data than the other side. And boy, if it's real estate, the multiple listing services are loaded with data. And even some of the other websites that are not related to the MLS that talk about home prices and things are good. And there's loads of data on Google about pricing anything from refrigerators to computers to whatever you want to buy. Number 15. Learn the power of no. Many people have talked about it, but I think Chris Voss, whose books probably you've heard of, was one of the people that stressed it more than others in the most recent set of books I've been reading. I actually created a seminar years ago that some people have already knew. The sale begins when the customer says no. But see, what are you hearing when I said the word no? Do yourself a favor. Just write down the spelling of the word no. And did you use 4 letters? Did you believe I said the sale begins when the customer says N-O? Or do you believe I said the sale begins when the customer says K-N-O-W? I don't know enough to say yes yet. Tell me more. See, I never thought of a no as a rejection. I felt of a no that I didn't give them enough information to make a decision. It's my fault. If they knew, they would do. If they don't know, they won't. If they knew, they would do. K-N-O-W-D-O, they bought it. They accepted it. They did it. So are you looking at no as a negative? Are you looking at no as an opportunity? A psychologist named Judith Sills talks a lot about the power of no. See, because negativity is an ongoing attitude. And no is a choice time. So I always have felt, and hopefully you start today feeling, no is not N-O. No means K-N-O-W. Tell me more. Chris Voss was a hostage negotiator. And sometimes using the word no is more powerful, N-O, than getting a yes, Y-E-S. But it's kind of a scary thought process. So if you want to read more about that, read his book. Never split the difference. There's a lot in there that will identify in depth much more than what I'm saying about learning the power of no. But also take a look at learning the power of K-N-O-W. Number 16, in our negotiation classes, we talk about the power of anchoring to find someone's lowest price. And if you never heard about anchoring, just start looking it up and reading about it. We've got articles on our website. There's articles all over that talk about anchoring. A low anchor is one of the most effective negotiation strategies for me. I intentionally will give a lowball offer or range to a prospect to change their perception of the deal's financial aspects. I know the trade-off is I could irritate people, so I look at that lowball offer in a way that makes it much more culpable to listen to. There are ways to present, again, to persuade before I persuade. The closer I can find that other side's bottom line without pushing them beyond repair, because everybody has to make money. I'm getting bids to have 2 trees cut down in my yard. Highest bid's been $950, lowest bid's been $650. It's all labor. The trees are easy access to. They're right off the driveway. There's no leaves on them now. They're not that tall. They just got to be done because they're dead. $950, $650. And a couple in between. Seems to me like $650 is a fair price. But I might ask the person who was at $725, how low can you go? They might say $625. But I'm happy if I have to pay $650 because it's much better than paying $950, which was my first bid. See, we have to understand that power of realizing that the low ball offer sometimes is the best offer. On the other hand, I'm still open to negotiations. 17. Three to one buy downs are popping up, offering a buyer some type of discount, savings, or credit. Higher mortgage rates, higher interest rates are having an impact on our market. They've decreased buying power. And anytime you decrease buying power, either 2 things happen. Seller has to lower their price to keep that offer alive, or the buyer has to move down to a different type property, or maybe third, come up with more money, but that's not as easy. Giving a mortgage to a bank as part of their purchase is to possibly do some buyer credits, do some other things that could offer some money, like a buy down, an undecorating credit up to a certain amount of money. A lot of options that could help bring the deal together. But above all, you have to realize there's got to be something today in light of rising mortgage rates that offers some benefits to more so the buyer than the seller. Because buyers are pushed into a corner from a year ago that's been a dramatic change from what it was, even the last couple of months. So be careful that you are not giving somebody something as a way to compensate for the tough times that we have right now. And I got to tell you, several different brokers have talked about 3-to-1 buy down. Lenders are talking about 3-to-1 buy down. In fact, Rocket Mortgage is advertising they'll knock off 1% the first year and buy it down. So again, if by chance Rocket Mortgage would do that, will some other lender do that? And then on top of that, if the seller gives a 3-to-1 buy down, wow, now we've got a credit that really has an impact on getting somebody in at a lower rate and maybe getting a higher price. Use all the options. Number 18, the more you probe, the more you ask questions, the more you get answers. A luxury property specialist taught me this. In her words, she said, learn what the other party needs. Not why they're selling or buying, but what will satisfy them that makes it a win-win. What do you really need to make this happen? How do you feel if this happens? Little phrases. Ask the agent questions. Look at the property differently. Put together the best deal so that the closing is smooth and successful. That's the key. Even use those words. We want to make this closing smooth and successful. How about this? What if you called your next listing agent, because you had a buyer, and said, we are writing an offer. Are there any terms the seller needs? See, that communication, that persuasion, that getting people thinking about some things. Is it a fast close? Is it less contingencies? Do they have to sell their home? Do you have to buy a home before they sell this one? I don't really ask why the seller is selling, because we know why they're selling. They'd like to do something different. What it is, we don't really care. We want to know what they need to make it work, because people satisfy their needs. So what does the seller need to make it work? Can I find out their hot button? I see they've owned it many years by the title profile. You can go back and look at things. Maybe they've got enough equity. Or maybe something about their kids were raised there. Was it an investment rental? I want to tell my buyer story to the selling agent, but I also want to know what the sellers really need to make it happen. That's very simply the concept of learn what the other party needs from the deal. It's a very powerful tool. Number 19. This one bothers some agents sometime. The code of ethics says we should represent our clients as best we can. It seems to me very difficult for me to understand why, as a buyer's agent, we write up an offer and we either email it or drop it off to the seller's agent and they present it. They're presenting my client's offer to their client. What if I ask permission because my buyer requests that I present the offer to your sellers in person? And then you can talk and discuss it. I'll wait in my car for the acceptance or the new offer. The single biggest negotiating tip I can give to people in my negotiating classes is try to meet the sellers face to face. And if you're the listing agent and you say yes, and you control the story, you're with them, with the agent, with your clients, then you have a right, if there's going to be a new offer from the sellers, you can go present your offer to the buyers. So you ask that up front. I have no problem doing that if you're okay with me presenting our new offer to the buyers. I know that's controversial, but I know the success of it is amazing. It also stops agents in their tracks. Do you want to do what? Yes, my client suggested that I present this offer. And as you well know, every licensed law in every state of this country says you must obey the lawful directions of your client. So part of my expectation sessions, part of my seller counseling sessions, my buyer counseling sessions is to remind them I'm going to ask them to tell me that I want to present this offer that they're making to the other side. Amazing in multiple offers how that's worked well. And people will buy and work with somebody they like and trust. If I can help sell my sellers or my buyers to the other side, I think meeting in person has possibilities, and we should be doing it anyway to best represent our clients. So I focus on presenting to people. Try to meet your buyers or sellers in person. We talked about bluffing before. So in a good poker game, you keep your cards close. In a buyer's market, it's a great strategy. Again, avoid any body language, any words, any innuendos, letting the listing agent know that you have other options. Because when there's a little bit amount of inventory and a lot of people that want it, that's a seller's market. In many markets around the country, I know my market, we have a lot of people that want to buy and a lot of people that want to sell. It's a buyer's market. But interest rates have come up. That creates some issues. So again, keep your cards close, but basically let people know you have other options. Number 21. Many people do feel that texting and emailing is not as good as live conversations. I understand that. I appreciate that. But I also want you to realize that a text or an email puts some things down on print. Live conversations are nothing more than hearsay. In real estate, I make this statement many, many times. Oral statements aren't worth the paper they're written on. I don't care what somebody says in a live conversation. It's what they put down on that contract to purchase that makes a difference. I know a lot of agents use text messages. I know there's a lot to be said about text messages. Why not combine them with live conversation? Here's what I feel. Here's what I think. Let me give you a call. And then follow up with a summary. Emailing and texting in negotiations has a lot of power. Live conversation is good, but there's no track record. There's no way to go back on something. Every time I call any company about an airline ticket or making a reservation or buying something or an 800 number to complain about a bill, I start a note file on the phone. Who am I speaking with? What call center are you at? And I've got a note for every conversation I talk to. I've got something down on paper. And then if I have a chance to send them a text message saying thank you, I do. I want to put something down in writing for myself. So my live conversations on the phone, my live conversations on Zoom, my live conversations anywhere are documented in my notes on my computer regularly. Number 22. One of our CNE graduates, RE/MAX agent, always felt like a place where agents miss the boat is on inclusions. So I think use inclusions strategically is number 22. People add a lot of stuff. What's the advantage of including it when they could be negotiable tools later? If you're close to something, maybe leaving things not automatically a part of the package would make it better in negotiations, because now we can throw in the washer and the dryer. We can throw in the refrigerator. We can throw in some of those other items that normally are automatically included. It's easy to do. Just don't check them on the MLS data sheet and let that become a way to make the pie a little bigger. Maybe I can leverage an extra 1,000 or 2 by throwing in those appliances. I would have loved to have the refrigerator included in the sale I just made. The seller really wanted it because it's a unique refrigerator. And thankfully, now that I research it, I'm glad I didn't get it, because it's a model that's being discontinued because of the feature. It's not working properly. So I bought the same model without that feature. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's very simple. Maybe they get this to get that. So we'll give you the appliances, we'll give you the patio furniture, and maybe you can not ask for many of these items you want fixed. We can take our personal property with us and fix what you want, or you can pay for those. Because many times a person asking for a repair oftentimes wants more than it really costs. They're looking for a credit. So I'm of the opinion, very strongly, that use inclusion strategically. Don't automatically include everything. Some people have very expensive appliances these days. There are refrigerators, washers, dryers are costing lots of money. 23, I believe if you're going to be effective in negotiations, you need to get some type of proof that you are good. There are many negotiation training programs around the country. Some are 1 day, some are a few hours, some are 2 days, some corporate ones through Harvard are a week. Somehow you need to learn negotiations. I'm of the opinion what I present, the CNE designation, MCNE designation, the Real Estate Negotiation Institute, are the best in the country. Our proof is in the pudding. So I'm hoping that you realize the power of negotiations, because the National Association of Realtors every year in its profile of buyers and sellers comes to a conclusion that a large percent, sometimes over 95% of buyers are saying they're not satisfied with their agents and negotiation strategies. And sellers sometimes feel just as strongly. All you got to do to prove the power of that designation, that course, that certification, is to realize every single year the data doesn't change by the thousands of people that are profiled through the NAR survey. The 24th and last one, to make it 24, is to very simply understand the power of effectiveness first and efficiency second. As I do my research to build wealth, whether it's by negotiating or by just finding a better investment or analyzing income property, I want to be making sure I'm doing the right thing, not just doing things right. It's always better to do the right thing than do things right. So as you plan your strategy, do what the carpenters do when they're building homes. They measure twice and they cut once. Take the time to gather the information, to have the patience and persistence so your deal doesn't paralyze itself. See, time on your side is a winner. Information on your side is a winner. The more information, the better the decision. Patience is on your side, but patience without persistence leads to paralysis. So I've given you 24 ideas, strategies that might make some sense. Let's simply go through those very quickly one more time. Maybe you missed, maybe then I leave you with a week ahead to do a number of great things. With that said, guys, we're starting our spring market. March 1st is this week. And as you looked at what I tried to present in Wayne's World, is get you to get a feel for the power of being in a win-win situation. So number one we talked about was very simply to push, pull, and persist. Number two, we identified as including an escalation clause to make your offers more competitive. Third thing I said was always negotiate by phone as best you can before committing anything on paper. The fourth point, and again, you don't have to agree with all of these, manage buyer expectations by using discretion. That's that expectation session. Number five, sometimes they do have to sleep on it because things can get too personal. And sometimes just a chat to go away from things makes it happen. Number six was take a look at the type of negotiation strategy and identify some moves that create value to prove the benefits. How do we influence people? Number six was basically always keep notes on listing in your CRM. Number seven was set reasonable expectations. Number 8 is watch out for that anger hammer because angry people don't solve anything. Number 9 was make them think they're saying yes was their idea. Create a win-win perspective was number 10. Number 11 was basically starting with a market value instead of an asking price. Get the data right. Number 12, timing is critical. Focus on timing. And again, Bob Cialdini's mindset, learn the rudiments of persuasion. In Wayne's World, let's persuade before we persuade. Number 14 was try to have more data than the other side. Data, data, data in negotiations. Location, location, location may be in selecting real estate, but data, data, data. Using that left brain logic, because people buy on emotion and justify on logic. 15 was geared towards the concept of learning the power of no, whether it's N-O or K-N-O-W, distinguish. 16 was a simple concept of anchoring. Number 17, looking for ways to give buyers a credit, buy downs, other types of things. 18 was learning what the other party needs from the deal. What do they really need to make it happen? People buy on emotion, people sell on emotion, justify on logic. Try to meet people in person, presenting offers and new offers. Number 20 was keep your cards close. Got to learn how to bluff, but stay nonchalant. Text messaging, emails are good. Always better than live conversations to begin the process. Just get things rolling. And then we talked about using inclusion strategically. And 23 was be able to get your designation in some form of real estate negotiations. I'm personally focusing like a laser beam providing a C&E designation to agents across the country. Hopefully you'll join me in Northbrook if you're nearby for 8 hours of CE credit at the North Shore Barrington Association of Realtors. Then lastly, understand the power of effectiveness versus efficiency. It's always better to do the right thing than to do things right. I would like to say thank you for joining me in Wayne's World. See you next week. Have a good rest of February. And March will be here just in a few days. Bye. Enjoy it. Thanks for watching.